If you're retiring from the military around the ages of 42 to 45, I need you to think about something that might make you uncomfortable. Your retirement isn't going to last for 30 years like most Americans. It's going to last for 50 years, maybe longer. And fundamentally, that changes how you should be thinking about your TSP. I'm Greg Young, certified financial planner, military qualified financial planner, and I work exclusively with military families, veterans, and federal employees. And what I'm about to show you is based on research that I just submitted to the Journal of Financial Planning, but I'm going to explain it in plain English because this matters to your actual life and not just academic theory. So let's talk about why most military retirees are investing too conservatively in their thrift savings plan and what to do about it. So here's the reality. Most military retirees just don't fully process that the horizon that they're planning for isn't what's normally published in all of the financial stuff that's out there, like Market Watch or NerdWallet and things like that, or the Medium. The Social Security Administration tells us that the 65-year-old couple retiring today, there's a 50% chance that at least one spouse is going to live past 93. That's a 28-year retirement for most Americans. But if an 05 who retires at anywhere between 42 and 45, that number gets shifted. It's now 50-year retirement horizon, and that's not a typo. That's 50 years. That's 2 generations. So that's time enough for your grandchildren to be born, grow up, and start their own careers. And here's the problem. A lot of the military retirees that I'm seeing are investing like they're 65 years old, not 42. So let me show you some of the other things that I see all the time in my practice. I'm going to pick on the age group 42 again. So a 42-year-old retiree comes in, and I take a look at their TSP statement, and they've got 40, 50, sometimes 60% of their money is in the G fund or the F fund. That represents bonds, government securities. And I ask them why. And they say, well, I'm retired or I'm retiring, and either this happened organically or I decided that I needed to be more conservative because market volatility is scary. But here's what they're missing. This portfolio isn't your income. You're not portfolio dependent. You're going to have a pension. You're going to have a VA disability often. That pension is going to cover your baseline expenses. It's going to adjust for inflation every year with cost of living adjustments or COLA, and it's guaranteed for your whole life. That means that your TSP isn't your retirement income. It's a supplemental amount of money that you probably won't touch for 20 to 30 years. So why are you investing like you need it tomorrow? Now, I also see people come in and they're in the life cycle funds, and we're just going to call those the L funds from now, and that's fine. The L funds are actually really, really good. If you look at even some of the ones coming up right now, they have great track records of 3, 5, and year-to-date performance that are way more than what you would expect them to see. But at the end of the day, they're still built on a glide path, and they are built and designed for people who retire at 65. All right. Usually that's what you pick your age for, is you pick your age for when you would be that normal retirement age. And if that's what you did, that's great. But I've seen plenty of people that have picked when they retired from the military, not from what's considered their Social Security full retirement age. So those are 2 different ages, 42 and 65, big difference. And if you're in the ELF 2030 fund right now, that fund assumes that you're retiring in year 2030 and will start drawing income then. So it's getting more conservative every single year, automatically moving you into more F fund, G fund, bond allocations. But if you're already retired and you're not drawing from this TSP, or you're entering in your second career or living on your pension, your TSP can keep growing. You should probably be in the L 2050 or the 2060 fund, or honestly just building out your own portfolio that matches the general market character with mostly money in the CS and I funds. Because honestly, over the next 30 years, inflation is a way bigger risk to you than the threat of market volatility. Let's say you have 500,000 in your TSP today. You're 45 years old. You're not going to touch this money until you're, let's call it 65 or 70 years old. So that's 20 to 25 years. If you want to keep it in bonds and the G fund and it grows at 3% per year, you'll have about $1 million in 25 years. And honestly, that's awesome. That's actually great, right? But if inflation averages 2.5% or 3% per year, that $1 million only has a purchasing power of about $540,000 in today's money. So you barely kept up with inflation. Now, alternatively, if I put $500,000 into equities or stocks like the C fund and the S fund, which are U.S. companies, and the I fund, which is international equivalents of U.S. companies, and it grows at, let's say, an average of 8% per year, you'd have $3.4 million in 25 years. So adjusted for inflation, that's about $1.8 million in today's purchasing power. That's 3 times more real wealth. All right. And here's the kicker. You have a pension protecting you, which I'm going to say a bunch of times throughout this presentation. You have a pension as your safety net. You can actually afford to ride out market volatility because you're not selling stocks to pay for groceries. Your pension does that. What this does is this protects you if you live abnormally long, or it allows you to buy more of those fun years when you're truly retired, but you still have the health to go out and experience everything that life has to offer. So I created this case study from my practice, and this is going to be Reece and Taylor Sterling, not their real names, but real client situation. Reece was a 48-year-old retired commander from the United States Navy. He now works as a civilian at Newark, the Naval Undersea Warfare Center here in Rhode Island, making about $120,000 a year salary, and his pension is $60,000. His spouse, Taylor, is a research director at our Brown University here, and combined, they're earning, let's call it $245,000 a year, and they've quietly crossed the $1 million mark in net worth. When they came to me, Reece's TSP was allocated like this. He had 50% of that balance in his G fund. He had 20% in F fund, 20% in C fund, and the remaining 10% was split between the S and I funds. So he said to me, as I was preparing for retirement, I felt I needed to be more safe, so I'm allocated that way. And, we agreed, and these are his words. He's like, we've done okay. And I agreed with him. Like, they've amassed great money. They did great savings. But he was wondering, and he said, I was wondering if maybe we're missing something. I asked him, when are you actually going to start drawing from this money? Like, what's your plan to turn this into income? And he said to me, honestly, I'm probably not until 65 or 70 years old. And when we were looking at his cash flow, he said, last time we did a budget, my pension plus my military salary plus my VA disability cover everything and more. Taylor's salary funds all the kids' activities and lifestyle expenses and adventures. And their TSP and some of the Roth money that they put on the side and the brokerage accounts, they were literally just sitting there growing. So my response was, well, why are you invested like somebody that needs this money next year? Because really that's what that is, especially with 50% being in the G fund. That's a great approximation where, hey, I'm going to have this dramatic decline in the market in the first couple of years that I need money. Let's be safe. Well, he didn't necessarily need that buffer, at least not yet. So what we did was we moved them to this portfolio, or an approximation of this. I don't always do it the same way different times because I like the G fund more than the F fund, but we did 10% in the G fund. This is emergency stability. The G fund is a very unique fund that has some measures of principal protection, completely unique for government securities. He had 10% in the F fund, so this is like an interest rate buffer. 50% in the C fund, so that's the proxy for that would be the S&P 500, the largest swath of big U.S. companies that are creating profit. 20% in the S fund, which is small cap growth. Now, small cap, these are smaller U.S. companies that have usually outsized growth potential, and because they want to become large companies, and their risk characteristics are different than the already established massive companies. And then we did 10% into the I fund. So this is for international diversification. The global markets don't all move at the same time. That allows us to control the risk perspective of this particular portfolio by not just investing in US companies. So his new allocation is 80% stocks. And is this aggressive? Yeah, maybe. But they told me that they're not going to touch his money for 20 years. They have a pension, they have earned income. Taylor has her retirement plan at the university. So their TSP's job isn't income replacement. It's growth ahead of inflation. So its purchasing power is there when they actually need it in whatever their true retirement is. Maybe that's 65 to 75 or 75 or 80. And here's the thing. This family represents a lot of the military and federal employees that I work with. And there's a resounding theme. You've done okay. You've saved consistently. You've made good decisions. And you actually look great, but you're wondering, are we missing something? Could we be doing something better? And the answer is often yes, not because you did anything wrong, but because your situation is fundamentally different than, most retirees, especially civilian retirees. And you don't need a strategy that's built that generic way. Here's the thing that actually works me a little bit more for my clients, not because they're in the military, but just in general. Your pension, when you retire, has COLA, so this cost of living adjustment that follows inflation every year. The problem is healthcare costs grow at a completely different inflation level, so they grow faster than general inflation, way faster. The Kaiser Family Foundation found that healthcare costs have been growing at about 5% per year, while our general or core CPI is always between that 2 and 3% mark. That means that over a 30-year retirement, your healthcare costs could double as a percentage of your pension, even though your pension is only adjusting for inflation. So putting some numbers to this, let's say that your out-of-pocket healthcare cost today is $5,000 a year with TRICARE and TRICARE for life. So that's any sort of premiums that you pay for Medicare, that's co-pays, deductibles, not bad. $5,000 a year, not bad. If those costs grow 5% annually for 30 years, by the time you're 75, your healthcare costs would be about $21,500 per year. Meanwhile, if your pension grows from $60,000 to $100,000, $120,000 in 30 years, with COLA at 2%, 2.5%, 3%, your healthcare costs went from 8% of your pension to anywhere from 17 to 21% of your pension. Same benefits, same coverage, but it's eating more of your income. And here's the thing, TRICARE doesn't actually cover long-term care the way that a lot of non-military specific practitioners thinks that it does. 70% of people turning 65 today will need some form of long-term care. Nursing home costs are about $108,000 per year on average. Assisted living is $64,000. TRICARE covers skilled nursing after surgery. It does not cover custodial care when you're 85 and need help bathing, dressing, eating every day. So that's a big gap in dignity and independence. That's where your TSP comes in. So if you kept it in bonds and it had barely kept up with inflation, you might not have enough. But if you let it grow a little bit more aggressively while you're 45, 50, 55, you'll have this amazing cushion when you actually need it. So what do I actually do about this? I have three main strategies. Strategy one is I maintain growth exposure. I aim for 60 to 70% stocks in the TSP, even after military retirement, especially if you're going to move into a second career. Your pension is going to provide that conservative foundation, that safety net for your minimum dignity floor or your minimum lifestyle. And your TSP's job is just to grow faster than inflation. I love the C, S, and I funds as your primary holdings. I love to just match what the market allocation looks like, which is right now about 65% US companies, 35% international companies. And then the G fund is great for stability. But holding 50% there for 30 years means that inflation is going to erode your purchasing power. So strategy two is we stress test healthcare costs. I model your healthcare costs growing at 5% annually, not 2.3%. And I set aside 10 to 15% of your TSP as mental accounting for, hey, this is for healthcare and long-term cash reserves. I try not to touch that unless you absolutely need it, but you get to know that it's there. Strategy 3 is plan for a long widowhood. Kind of morbid, but this is life. This is uncomfortable and essential. Women live longer than men on average. If you're a married military couple, there's a good chance one of you will outlive the other by 10 to 15 years. Understanding your survivor benefit plan election and modeling what happens to the household income when one spouse passes creates some predictability. It creates some value in your plan. So make sure that the surviving spouse has sufficient income plus portfolio. Look, living longer is a blessing, but it requires different planning than your parents' or grandparents' retirements. Your military pension is an enormous advantage, and it provides an inflation-adjusted income floor that most Americans will never have. But it doesn't eliminate the need for eliminate the need to plan for a 50-year retirement horizon, healthcare costs that grow faster than your pension, and maintain portfolio growth to combat inflation and other risks. The good news is that you have time, you have a pension, you have a TSP, you have benefits that most civilians don't, but you need a strategy that acknowledges your retirement timeline isn't 30 years. It's longer. Now, if this resonates with you, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'm starting a new thing where I'm trying to release videos again. My target is about weekly or bi-weekly, specifically for military families, veterans, and federal employees. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You can just search for Gregory Young or Gregory M. Young, CFP. That's where I'm going to share research, data, insights between videos. And I post regularly about TSP saving, military retirement planning, and the academic research that is behind what actually works in real life. Drop your questions in the comments below. So what's your biggest concern about the TSP? What do you wish you understood better about your pension and retirement planning? I'm going to read and respond to every comment, and your questions actually are going to shape future videos as well. If you're thinking we've done okay, but maybe it's time for a second look, well, that's exactly who I work with. I specialize in helping military families who've quietly crossed the $1 million milestone but wonder if they're missing opportunities. You can schedule an exploration with me on my website at headfullwealth.com. The link is in the description. No pressure, no sales pitch, just a conversation about whether working together makes sense. Thanks for watching. Now go check your TSP allocation.